Hi, I'm Courtney Landine and the owner of Happy Sleeping Baby. I've been a sleep coach for over 5 years now, and I've helped hundreds of families get better nights of sleep. First, before we begin, there's a downloadable PDF. If you'd like to go ahead and pause the video and just go down and download that now, you can use that to go along with the seminar. And today, this seminar is going to cover common myths and sleep questions that I get on a regular basis. So I hope to answer a lot of questions for you, and let's get started. Okay, welcome to your Happy Sleeping Baby seminar. So first, like I had mentioned, there's that handout below. So just go ahead and download that if you'd like to use it to follow along or use the tips afterwards. And if you use any of my tips, feel free to tag me. You can follow along at Happy Sleeping Baby, both at Facebook or Instagram, and you can always hashtag Happy Sleeping Baby. Okay, so first and foremost, how do I put this? You basically will not sleep the same again as a parent. I hate to break it to you, but it's kind of the truth. It doesn't mean that you won't sleep again or sleep in or sleep well. It just means that for now, yeah, you're probably going to be a bit more tired. I mean, let's be honest, being a parent is mentally and physically exhausting. You're doing so much more than you did before kids. And that's the reality. It's all right. It's all worth it. I promise. And the reason I know is because I've been in your slippers. I had a little baby girl, I have a little baby girl here, and she was, let's see, she was about 2 months old in this photo. And as you can see, she went from just laying there fine, being fine, and then all of a sudden it's just screaming. I mean, literally these pictures were within 2 seconds of each other, because this is what was happening to us, where she was fine and then screaming, and we could not figure out why. We were changing her diaper so often, even though it looks like this one's a little full, but we were going through diapers like crazy, thinking it was a wet diaper, and everything you could possibly imagine. And the poor thing, I mean, look how tired she was. We were all very tired. What ended up happening, long story short, is that she actually ended up having a milk protein allergy and also a peanut allergy. So everything that I was eating basically was making her little tummy and her skin just a disaster and really itchy, even though she didn't really show many symptoms other than being cranky. I mean, that was her main symptom. She also had eczema. So that was what happened for us. After getting that test and figuring out what it was, obviously I fixed my diet and what I was eating, and she was much better, but she still didn't know how to sleep. I mean, she basically slept on us for 6 months, and we put her to sleep, every single time. So she didn't know what a bed was. And that basically led me to do what I do now. I before was a personal trainer. I actually was a past athlete. I competed in 2 Olympics, and I wanted to continue on in the health world because I just find it so fascinating, and training is just amazing for our bodies. So I was a personal trainer. I even went on to study pre and postnatal corrective exercise, and I'm going to be coming out with a book very soon here in August. It's called Gravid Sterka. So, just really dove into health and wellness for parents and moms and babies, and I just really love what I do. So I am a family health coach. I am a certified sleep science coach. As you can see, I have a bunch of different badges here with different certifications that I have and different educations that I have. I think education is super important so that this isn't just me as a mom telling you, here's what worked for us. It's because it's not how it works, actually. So because of that, I'm actually a top rated consultant in the US. Even though I mainly practice now in Sweden, I still hold that badge in the US because I do have clients all over the US and all over the world, basically. So this is what I do now. I work on training, nutrition, and sleep for families. And one reason I focus on sleep is because I see the benefits that it gives to us. The benefits for a baby, I mean, we are giving them a stronger immune system. When they sleep, growing hormones go into their bodies, and that's the only time that those growth hormones go into their bodies is during deep sleep. And I've also seen that a well-rested child is curious, they're energetic, they're happy and playful, they're eager to learn, and it is a much different energy than hyperactive energy or overtired energy. So I saw the benefits firsthand myself, and I just really needed to share these benefits with families because I saw so many other people struggling. And it's not only for the babies, it's also for the parents. I mean, we're now learning that sleep is so important for our mental health. Obviously we need it to have a strong immune system. If we're not sleeping, we can, get sick easier. We have a much lower stress response. It helps regulate hormones in our body. I mean, this all goes down to even regulating the hormones that are in your stomach that digest your food, whether you'll gain weight or not. I mean, it's amazing what sleep can do. And it also just helps regulate your mood. If you're not sleeping, you're obviously, probably a little more crankier than normal, right? So it helps regulate mood, and it's just, it's really the miracle cure for us. So let's get into myths and common sleep questions about sleep. First, myth 1. Babies sleep through the night by 6 weeks old. Now, I wish I would have known this when I was a young mom because it is so not the case. I remember even saying, oh, my baby is 6 weeks old. Why isn't she sleeping through the night? And obviously I think back and laugh at that now because babies aren't going to sleep all the way through the night by 6 weeks old. And let's go into why. So sleeping through the night in the medical community, it is really 5 hours up until about 3 to 4 months old. So 5 hours is actually what's considered sleeping through the night. And even if your baby does sleep those 5 hours, maybe they have, technically woken up, but they just haven't woken up you, the parents. So some will have a really nice, quiet sleep for those 5 hours, while others will make, some noises. So it all really depends on if it's waking you up or not. And all wake up throughout the night. We do too as adults. It's very normal, and I'll explain this as to why in just a second, but we all wake up throughout the night. Now, it is true that some babies fall asleep easier than others. There is no doubt about that. I see it firsthand on a regular basis where some babies just can fall asleep no problem in training classes that I have, while others are wide awake, and I can totally see, it's just that different personality where some babies are a little bit more go with the flow, while others are a little bit more sensitive to their surroundings. Now, no matter what, just remember you are an awesome parent. If you're struggling with sleep and your friend isn't, it doesn't mean you're a worse parent at all. It just means that you're going to have some different lessons, throughout parenthood. That's all. And you might even understand your child more because you will have to understand them a little bit better when it comes to sleep. So let's talk about how we sleep because this has a lot to do with waking up throughout the night. So stages of sleep. Now, take in mind that this is after 4 months old. It's a little bit different up to that 4-month-old mark. So I'm just going to cover after 4 months old. So stage 1 is basically a light sleep. So you're very aware of what's going around you. You can lay in your bed and you'll feel that, okay, I'm just relaxing and, trying to drift off into sleep, but you're very, very easily woken at this stage. So if you continue laying there, this is stage 2 is a little bit light sleep as well, but you're going into a little bit deeper stage of sleep. So you can be easily woken up in this stage, but you will be very aware that you are falling to sleep. If you've ever felt that like jerk of being woken up, like that falling feeling, that's actually your body literally trying to fall into sleep, and it's just being woken up. Then after that, we actually go into a stage 3 and 4 sleep, which is a deep, slow wave sleep. And this is when growth hormone is put into the body for children. It reduces as we grow older. And so this sleep is really restorative for the body. We really need this sleep. We need every stage of sleep, but deep sleep is very important. After deep sleep, we go into REM. So REM is rapid eye movement sleep, and this is where you will remember your dreams. We typically dream in color during this stage, and you'll most likely wake up and remember you were having a dream. REM is also extremely important. This is actually when our memories go from our short-term memory to our long-term memory. So REM sleep is also very important. So every stage of sleep is very much needed. none of them are more important than the other. So just keep that in mind. Like, it doesn't matter, like, if you're getting, you know, less of one stage, just because like it all kind of evens out. So basically what happens is that you repeat those stages. So all those sleep stages equal one sleeping cycle. And we go through those kind of like waves throughout the nighttime. So one sleeping stage, so stage 1 to REM, is one cycle. And adults typically go through this in about 60 to 120 minutes. Usually you'll hear it's about 90 minutes. So that's general, 90 minutes or so. And then children can have sleep cycles of about 30 to 90 minutes. And adults usually have about 5 to 6 of these cycles each night. That's when we feel best, is getting that many cycles each night. And then children typically have more because they're obviously sleeping for a longer amount of time than we are. So usually you're going to see your baby wake around, 30, 60, or 90 minutes. And then you will know that that's them completing a sleep cycle. Now, waking up, and we'll cover this a little bit later in the seminar as to what might be causing more of those wake ups. I mean, obviously there's many reasons when a newborn baby is, hungry, they need to wake up and they need to eat. So that's really common. So up until six weeks, I mean, like, obviously you're going to be having lots of wakings, and they might start tapering off as your baby starts getting older. Now, let's go into, covering myth 1 here. So babies sleep through the night by 6 weeks old. No, and it doesn't mean that they can't. So there are some babies that sleep amazing at 6 weeks old, and then actually by 4 months old, when they hit their regression phase, then they actually start sleeping less or worse. So it doesn't mean that they can't sleep. It just means that they're probably waking for feedings. They're waking up after a sleeping cycle. And a lot of the times babies are going to wake up until a year old or even more. I mean, I work on a regular basis with older children as well that are still waking up. And again, we'll cover those topics a little bit later. So that's myth 1. Let's go into myth 2. Sleeping too much during the day will keep my baby up at night. Now, this is not true, because what happens when your baby gets overtired is that cortisol and adrenaline rush into their bloodstream and try to keep them awake. Now, this happens for adults too. So basically, like, when we have too much going on or we're stressed, we tend to not sleep as well because we have these hormones in our body. Now, there's another hormone here called adenosine. And what adenosine is basically our sleep drive in our body. So there's a chemical that gets produced after our cells basically eat glucose, and then this kind of is their byproduct. So adenosine kind of makes us tired. And this will build up in the brain, and then it will tell your body that, hey, it's time to sleep now. And this is what happens for babies, and this is why it's really important to watch their awake windows. So awake windows are periods of time that your child can stay awake happily, and they're not being pushed over into that over cranky state and then having a harder time falling asleep. Now, I really wish I would have known about these in the beginning. I don't know if it would have helped just because of the allergy my daughter had, but I think it would have helped so much more just knowing that I should have been trying to get her to sleep within an hour as a newborn. And I think a lot of parents do really well knowing these awake windows after coming to a seminar or listening to a seminar, because then they're like, oh, right, now I totally get that my baby isn't as cranky if I'm watching those awake windows. So that's the reason why it's really important to have your child sleeping within, whatever's reasonable for their age. So signs of tiredness, they can be red eyebrows or red eyes. Babies can pull their ears, they might look away, they might stare off into space, they might start getting cranky. Yawning is one. I don't really use that as my main sleepy sign, just because you can wake up and actually start yawning. So, just use that kind of as a last sleepy sign, and look for these other ones first. Now, for older kids, they might start losing their balance. They might start falling over more. They might get clumsy or drop things more often. So, kids will have different tired signs at different stages. So just, watch what your child does and use those signs of tiredness to help get them ready for their awake window. So what I recommend is parents using what I call clocks and cues. So clocks, watching their awake time window, and then cues, watching for their sleepy signs. So then you can start just kind of basing your child's day off of these, simple awake time windows and sleepy signs. So myth 2, keeping your baby up too much during the day will keep your baby up at night. Sleeping too much during the day will keep your baby up at night. And honestly, the opposite will actually happen. Your baby's going to be too overtired. They're going to have too many stress hormones in their body. And what ends up happening is that your baby's sleep quality actually is worse. So think about yourself. When you're overstressed, we actually sleep worse. Our quality of sleep's really bad. So same thing basically happens for your kiddo. Okay, myth 3 is a big one because it was just it's all lumped together, basically. So babies will naturally decide their own sleep schedule and can't be taught to sleep. Teaching to sleep is stressful for the baby and can affect the parent-child attachment. So we're going to hit a couple of these here. Like I said, I combine this because this is a pretty big one, and I get asked this one basically all together because one can't be without the other. So sleep is beneficial to both baby and the parents. I mean, we know that. So it's really important to have healthy sleep habits. And we also know that happier parents equal a more stable home. And there's even research that backs up that happier parents are one of the main factors to having a calmer child. So this is providing your child a very stable home, and it's one of their main pillars. So besides nutrition, sleep, and having a stable home or caregivers. So really important. And we know that when we're not sleeping, we're not really happy parents and we tend to fight more. So I think that getting good sleep is a very big factor. Sleeping is also a skill. So yes, some babies will sleep easier than others, but others need help. Others don't know this skill yet. I mean, honestly, this isn't really a skill that they know right away. So say, for example, your child is a little bit more of a sensitive sleeper. They're more sensitive to their environment. So they may not be able to sleep in a light lit room or out in a stroller. This is a skill that you need to help them with. I know babies that just need that little bit of a cue as to, okay, the lights go off. I, get my bottle or something and I get my little stuffed animal and then I go to sleep. Now, if they don't have that cue, then they actually don't know what to do. So babies will learn whatever you are consistent with. So good or bad. A lot of the times babies don't know that they're not going to be fed to sleep forever. And they don't know that that's going to change. So babies will learn whatever you're consistent with. And the thing is that helping your child sleep increases their security of your relationship. So this isn't something that actually hurts your relationship. Although I know there's a lot of people that will argue that having to sleep train is really difficult or really harsh. But in fact, helping your child learn this will actually increase your security with them. And also getting sleep, better sleep improves the parent-child relationship. So I was this mom myself. I know I have worked with hundreds of sleep-deprived parents who've told me this as well, that say, getting sleep has helped them and it's improved their marriage because now they're obviously not snapping at each other on a regular basis. So it really is important to get the sleep that you need. So myth 3, babies will naturally decide their own sleep schedule and can't be taught to sleep. Not all the time. They definitely can use some simple cues to help sleep. And teaching to sleep is stressful for the baby. And I'll cover that in a little bit, about the stress, but really teaching and helping your child learn that sleep is a good thing. It really can strengthen relationships. So let's dive into common questions about sleep that I get. Okay, so my baby only naps for 30 minutes. So some babies are shorter nappers during the day because daytime sleep is a little bit different than nighttime sleep. And a lot of it depends on their awake windows. Are they tired enough? Sometimes they just have a little bit harder time calming down during the daytime, so they may not nap, too terribly long. But before you decide that your child's a short napper, I want you to check these things first: room environment, awake windows, and the routines that you use. Let's go over those. So room environment first. Dark. You need to have it dark, as dark as possible. Get blackout blinds, double up on blackout blinds, try to make it as dark as possible, because what happens is that light actually will stimulate something in our brain. It actually will cause our body to not produce our sleep hormone called melatonin. So it's really important that you have it dark in the room. Next, white noise or using a fan. I think a fan is fantastic because it helps move the air around in the room and it helps keep it cool. So white noise is great, or a fan, because it helps turn off the brain. I mean, really, it just kind of cancels out those extra noises that you may not even think will bother your baby, but they can. So use that as a way to help drown out those extra noises. And then next, it's really important that it's actually cool in the room. So depending on the season, it can be anywhere from 16 to 20. I tend to find that like an in-between, like around 18, 19, that's really a great sleeping temperature for people and for babies. Now, I work with a company called Parvel. They have a great device, and that can actually tell your baby's temperature. So you can actually put this next to them. You can even put it in there, like overall, like when they're sleeping, or even outside or inside, doesn't matter. And this will actually help tell you what their like area temperature is, not their body temperature, but like the area around them temperature. And this will really help, because it's actually important to be able to cool down the body to actually fall asleep. So if they're too hot, they actually will wake up. And this has helped solve a lot of people's problems, actually, is just figuring out their room environment, because these can solve so much. So I actually work with this company, and I am able to offer 10% off of their Parvel Go, what's called, is what you see right there. So if you enter in Happy Sleep at Parvel Store, Parvel.store, then you'll be able to get that 10% off. Again, I really recommend this. And a little tip, we're actually coming out with a sleep coach within the app, and it will be free for quite a while. So I would really recommend that you go ahead and look into that on their website, and we'll be sharing more information, especially on like social media. Then last for the room environment is actually having a sleeping buddy. So a sleeping buddy is like a little comfort item. I really like the stuffed animals with like the little blanket body. Those are perfect. They can be really long-term use ones, just because like you can use it as a baby, and then as your child grows, they still can use it. Just having that comfort item, something they sleep with every single time they go to sleep. So for naps and nights, it just helps them realize that, all right, I have my sleeping buddy, I know what to do. So you basically want to stimulate the womb, or simulate the womb as much as possible, because this is what your child sleeps best in. And this even applies for adults too. So if you have trouble sleeping, then I would really recommend also just making sure your room environment is set up for sleep. So then we already covered awake windows. That's another part of trying to see if your baby can sleep a little bit longer, is just making sure they have their right awake time window, so that their body isn't producing those hormones to keep them awake. And then next, a day routine. So having a consistent daytime routine. Now this will help develop your child's body into this natural sleep and awake rhythm. And it can be really easy. It can just be you wake up, you eat, you play, you get ready for sleep. So it doesn't have to be difficult at all, not at all. Now, the ideal schedule will really depend on your child's awake time window, but just keeping that consistent eat, play, sleep rhythm. And then I have some examples at happysleepingbaby.com in parent resources, but the link is also on that downloadable handout that you have as well. Now, if that sounds really boring or even too simple, because I know I was that sounds way too simple kind of parent, and I also did not want to have routines. I just was like, I just finally, for once in my life, want to just go with the flow. And unfortunately, it really backfired. And I hear this so often too. And so I actually looked into the science behind routines, because I was like, why do these work? And the reason is because it puts less stress on our brains. So it puts less stress on your child's brain too, not just ours, but like your child's brain has less stress on it. It's so cool. And the reason is because when we don't have to make these decisions on a regular basis as to, okay, what's happening next, our bodies can relax. We can actually not have to think about the next step of what's going to happen. The other interesting thing is that our bodies actually naturally react to a pattern. We actually have like 300 or more what are called circadian rhythms. So now we think of circadian rhythms as our waking and sleep cycles, but we actually have so many other rhythms within our bodies. So our bodies naturally react to these patterns, whether they're good patterns or bad patterns. The other thing too that's really interesting is that I will tell people just to get on these simple routines, and I have a lot of parents say my baby was so cranky until we actually got on these routines. So think about it. Next time you put your child in their high chair to eat and they're used to doing a certain thing every time, like say for example you put them in, you put their bib on, and then food shows up. If you're a little bit behind in one of those things, they're going to let you know that, like, hey, where's my food? It usually shows up now. Or even if you're getting ready to go out for something, you put your jacket on, you put shoes on, and then you go out. And if, something is out of that order, they'll usually, say something about that. So why routines work, again, they put in that sleep awake cycle in your body. It's really a really important thing so that sleep happens more naturally. And it also reduces the unknown. So this is about reducing the stress and anxiety for your baby. So routines are super awesome. If you think they're boring, remember that it will help sleep happen more naturally and that it helps reduce stress and anxiety for your baby. So the next thing is nap time routines. So going off the same kind of like routines thing is that you need to have a nap routine. So something that's about 15, 20 minutes, it doesn't have to be very long, even 10 minutes is fine. But basically you're feeding or giving a snack, making sure your child stays awake during this time. So even if you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding, make sure that they are awake during this feed, because what can happen is that they take a small little rest and then all of a sudden they are not tired for their nap. So think about that if your baby is fighting a nap time. So making sure they're awake for that. And then I always have parents read a book or sing a song, going into like their calm, dark room, having a book, song, and then putting your baby down like awake, but sleepy. So that they're not fully asleep. And then the same thing for bedtime. So 30 to 40 minutes maximum. You don't want it any longer because baby will basically lose the concept of what's happening with the routine if it's too long. So fairly quickly, it's bath if you're giving it that night, pajamas, you give a feed, but remember not to sleep or not even getting sleepy, brushing teeth if you're brushing teeth, books and songs, and then going into bed. So remember to keep the bedtime routine nice and calm. I usually say to go into the room for the books and the songs so that it's, dim and calm, and then your child's like ready to go to sleep. Sounds a lot easier than it is, I know. I get it. But then after that, your sleeping phase. So having a source of comfort and a reminder as to what your child is going to be doing when you're laying them down. So I like to say, it's time to lay your head down on your pillow, close your eyes, it's night time. Something just really simple, something you're saying every single time you're laying them down and putting them to sleep. So if your baby is only napping for 30 minutes, make sure you have these things in place of the room environment, awake time windows, and routines. And I cannot talk about routines enough because they are so important. Okay, next, my baby needs help to sleep and wakes up often. Now, this is probably my number one thing that I talk with parents about and work with parents on. So of course, first check these things that we just covered, room environment, awake time windows, and all of your routines. And then next, a sleep prop. So if you've worked on all those first things and you're still having your baby wake up often or really need help to sleep, then it's due to most likely a sleep prop. So a sleep prop is anything that assists your child to sleep. Feeding, bottle, rocking, pacifier, sleeping, or co-sleeping, basically anything that can help your child sleep. Now, I am not against these things at all. My daughter is 6 years old and I still hold her hand to fall asleep. So don't get me wrong that I am not against these things. I have co-slept, I've rocked, I've nursed to sleep, I've done all those things. The only thing is that, these are okay until no one is sleeping or until your baby is waking up after every single sleep cycle. So if they're waking up on that regular basis of about 30, 60 or 90 minutes, then you need to look at whether you are helping them too much to sleep. So how we sleep, remember we're going through those sleep stages, and once we go through dreaming, we go back into that light stage of sleep. If your child is being put to sleep a certain way, they go through a sleep cycle, they go into about stage 2, because we tend not to wake fully up. We kind of like check our environment a little bit, but then if they notice they're not in the same position or being helped to sleep or have a pacifier and that fell out of their mouth, most likely then they wake right back up into stage 1 or even all the way awake because they realize they're not in that same scenario and they need help again to go back to sleep. So again, it's okay to help your baby to sleep using these things as long as they can actually sleep for very, long stretches of time. Just be sure, if you want to move away from these sleep props, that you work away from helping your baby fall asleep by using these things. So you start helping them do this more by themselves. Now, this is probably the simplest slide I go over, just because obviously it sounds easy, but it's the most work of going or to putting your baby to sleep. So just keep in mind that, yes, this sounds maybe very simple, but it is the one stage that will take the most time. And this is the stage I also coach parents on because there tend to come a lot of questions around this. As simple as it looks, there's always a lot of questions. So basically, just the quick answer here is you're reducing the time that you're helping your baby fall asleep and you're getting them to do more of it. So say, for example, you're feeding or you're rocking to sleep. Basically, you would finish your feeding or you'd be, rocking your child to sleep, and then you'd actually want to be working on just holding your child to sleep. So you might, if you're feeding, you might actually have to go to rocking to sleep first, just to get your child not used to feeding to sleep. So you're rocking them, you're helping them, and then eventually you're just holding them. So you're rocking maybe for a little bit, and then you just stand still. So that would be like an example of how to work away from a sleep prop. The other one is lying in bed. If you're lying in bed with your child, then what you're going to do is actually sit next to the bed so that you're not just leaving them and just trying to have them figure it out all on their own. You're actually helping them with baby steps. So laying next to them, you move instead, you sit next to their bed. Maybe you're sort of half laying on their bed with them, like half of your body is on their bed as you're on a chair, and then you move to just holding their hand, and then you try to work away from that. So whatever works for your family. I mean, I am definitely not about, you have to be laying your child down in their bed and then leaving the room. Not at all. I mean, it's all about what works for your family. Like I mentioned before, my daughter is 6.5. Yes, 6.5. And I hold her hand every night. I even occasionally lay with her. And majority of the nights I actually lay with her in bed. I read, I lay down with her, we cuddle for a bit, she falls asleep, and I leave. And she sleeps all night. So, there is no right or wrong, and there's, whatever you want going to bed to look like for your family, it can look like that. So I've even had people, have to move away from sleeping props and say, oh gosh, I'll never get to cuddle with my baby. And it's not true at all. As long as they start learning how to sleep, you of course can start cuddling with them again, as long as, obviously it doesn't cause a regression into going back into wakings. So a lot of people ask me, making these changes, will it cause stress? Now, of course, if your child has been feeding to sleep for 8 months or even longer, and all of a sudden they are no longer feeding to sleep, yes, it will cause a little bit of stress, because obviously for 8 months, they've been taught that feeding equals sleep. And all of a sudden now this isn't happening. Now, this doesn't mean your baby can't learn this skill, because obviously they're going to have to learn it eventually. And some babies don't self-wean. Some do, great, awesome, congratulations, but some don't. So you will have to make that change if you have that as a prop and you want to move away from that prop. So what happens when we make these changes is, yes, it's a little bit of a tolerable short-term stress, but it's no different than learning a different skill. It's really no different than having them learn how to walk or crawl or anything at all. Yes, it may have more tears just because obviously they're tired at the end of the day, and obviously tired and crankiness can also cause being upset. But helping them learn this new skill will actually reduce stress in the long term. So let's go over stress, because I know it's a really hot topic about, well, humans, not just for babies, but just for adults as well. So we have different types of stress. We have positive stress, which is everyday normal stress. I mean, this is running to catch the bus. You know, if you're running late to get to the bus, this is the stress that helps jump us into action. If we're learning a new skill, you know, that's positive stress. It's a good thing. Stress isn't always bad. Then the next category we have is tolerable stress. So any change, any frustration that your child's going through, this is a tolerable stress. Now, this isn't bad as long as it's short term. It's not going to be for very long. Let's say, you know, a week or two, or, you know, so, and that you are there helping them make this change. So I like to relate this tolerable stress situation to basically starting foreschooling or preschool. Now, when your child is learning how to not be with you all day long, obviously this is a tolerable stress, but it's okay. They can handle this. And it's the same thing with making changes for sleep, as long as you're doing it in an age appropriate way. And that what's, you know, your baby is capable of doing, then it's an okay thing to be learning. The one stress that we want to avoid is toxic stress, and that is neglect. So you're never answering your baby's cries, which I doubt that's happening if you're watching this seminar, and you are having that, you know, ongoing. So months and months and months. This is not for like a couple weeks of learning a new skill and seeing improvement. This means like ongoing, where you're never answering your baby's cries. And the other one is sleep deprivation. I mean, if you are constantly sleep deprived, that is actually putting your body in a stressful, very toxic stress situation. So think about that one. I mean, like, I would much rather have parents go through a tolerable stress situation to get out of that toxic stress, and then obviously go into a normal or no stress situation when their baby is sleeping well. So, so toxic stress can really be ongoing months and months and months of sleep deprivation for both you and your child. So small steps to help learn a skill. So going off of, you know, stress, you know, learning a skill does cause stress. So what I like to have parents do that is after 5 months old, now please keep in mind that babies under 4 months old, you know, they'll be fine if they're fussing for a little bit or left to fuss for about a minute or so, but do not leave a 4-month-old fussing, or under 4 months fussing for a long time, because they do not have the ability yet to handle their own emotions or even start learning that. So you are your baby's emotional compass. Please do not do any sort of huge sleep training steps or the 5-minute method with babies under 4 months old. So after 5 months old, or around that 4-month mark, you're more than welcome to start letting your baby fuss for a little bit when they are playing. You know, after they wake up, give them positive encouragement. Say, for example, your baby wakes up, you hear them in their crib, and then you go ahead and say, "I hear that you're awake. Oh, I can't wait to come get you. Just 1 minute, mama will be there." And then you wait, you know, let's say it's 30 seconds first. Who cares? It doesn't have to be a full minute, but just give them that little bit of time before you just rush right in, because that's actually not helping them in the long term either. So let them know that it's okay. You hear them. It's all good. Then you start waiting just a little bit longer, just to give them a little bit more space to find their own way of what to do. So if a baby's on the floor trying to reach a toy and they're starting to get frustrated, give them encouragement. Tell them, "Oh, you're doing such a great job. Just try a little bit harder or a little bit more, and I'll help you in just a second. Good job." And then you go do that exact thing. You go help them. And then start noticing what they do when they're upset. You know, do they start finding something else to occupy themselves? Do they change their, what they're looking at, change their mindset? start noticing these things, because babies are fully capable of doing these, things to help what's called self-soothe themselves. Now, this is the healthy way to learn self-soothing. That is, self-soothing is not letting your baby cry in a dark room all alone. That's not a way to learn self-soothing. So help them learn this, because what it does is it actually helps them when they wake up at night. It helps them learn that it's okay for them to be in their bed and figure out what to do. So my baby needs help to sleep and wakes up often. So make sure you check the room environment, their awake time windows, routines, their sleeping prop, and then start learning during the daytime those little, just giving your baby a little space. So sleep is a roller coaster. There are times when your baby's going to sleep amazingly well, and there are other times where your baby is going to hit a development stage or a regression, or there's going to be a life change where maybe you're moving and their room is different. And even though they're a young baby, they notice things, they can sense things, they can sense our stress, they can, they're very cool creatures that are very intuitive. So sleep is a roller coaster. Know that it will go up and down, and it's normal. My best tip to leave you with is that consistency creates security and success. So be very consistent. Obviously, try to be consistent with the things that we talked about today, because that's what's going to give your child the best setup for good sleep. And just remember that sleep is a skill. You have to give your baby time to learn this. We give them time to learn how to eat with a spoon, with their hands, to crawl, to walk. I mean, it really is a skill for them to learn. And, the other thing too is that their bodies aren't set up right away for sleep. It has to adapt. It's growing. It's adjusting to this new way of being a human. So just give them time to learn this new skill. So if you use all these tips today and you still need further guidance, I offer a free 15-minute call. So you can book that at happysleepingbaby.com, and we can talk about what's causing your child's wake ups, and then how I can recommend either we work together going forward, or sometimes I'll even give a tip. And I've had parents say that one little tip helped them, and that's all they needed. So I'm happy to offer that free 15-minute call to give a tip to help you out. If you need more guidance, I do offer all kinds of support for families. So if you're preparing for a baby and you want to know what to expect before baby arrives, I offer sleep support. So basically anything, or a baby under 6 months, I offer email and calls and how to shape your child's sleep so they can start sleeping better and hopefully avoid sleep training. But I also do offer personalized sleep plans. So that's more of a 10-night, step-by-step plan that helps you get to better sleep. I also have a workbook, and I have that available, and this actually offers so much of what I talked about and more today in this workbook. So it's a workbook that you can use throughout your child's growth and development, and you can have all their sample schedules in there as well, and all the tips that I talked about. And you'll get one support email as well. So you'll be able to use your workbook, and then if you have a question, you can just shoot me an email and I will be happy to answer that question that you have. And everything that I just mentioned is going to be 15% off. So the sleep support, plans, workbooks, everything. So valid for 1 month after today. And you'll be able to use that, like I said, on anything that I basically have to offer there. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening to me babble on about sleep. I really love sleep, and it's just such an amazing topic, and that it can be so helpful for families. So please follow me on Happy Sleeping Baby or on Facebook and Instagram. I give lots of tips all the time there. I love to talk with clients and just potential clients that need some tips. Or of course, visit happysleepingbaby.com. So thanks again.